welcome to Town Hall. It's good to have you as always before we start proper, as people are joining a little bit of small talk. And so Jim is back. His son was on study abroad. And so, Jim, you took the opportunity to go to Florence.
I did. It was great. Actually, we took the opportunity. We hit Paris on the way. See, the problem is you can't fly directly to Florence
Mhm.
unless you stop
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah, you
So,
suffered for that,
right,
didn't
yeah,
you?
yeah. So we hit Paris on the way in and spent a little bit of time there. Then went to Florence and then out through London and back. So it was a great trip. He's doing great, so that's always good, to see your kid thriving. But yeah, Florence, if you've never been, it's kind of one of my new favorite places to go. So I hope to get back there one day. Great art and history. Just a little medieval town, that's kind of laid out. You just start walking and you get lost, and it's
Yeah.
great.
And it's
So
where all the great art, yeah, the great art, such
yeah,
great museums
yeah,
there and
yeah.
bridges too. Very cool.
Bridges, Michelangelo's David is there. It's good.
Mhm.
So one of the other things that's there is Galileo's middle finger. Did you get to go to the Galilean Museum? Because you can see his middle finger.
Hmm.
That we missed. We did hit a winery, but
Yeah.
maybe at the
But no
next
middle
time.
finger.
Yeah, but no
You got to
gallery.
go back, Jim. Got to go back.
Well, okay, I'll make it a priority for
Made
sure.
a priority. All right. All right. And Sally, you're going to go to Ireland.
I am. I am heading there on March 15th, and we will be there for St. Patrick's Day, which should be a really interesting experience that hopefully I live to tell you about.
I don't know that they're as crazy about it there as that we are here. I think it's just, like, I think
They
they
do
look
have
at us.
parades
Okay.
and whatnot, so I think they realized that it should be a thing based on what the Americans do. And so now each of the counties have their own celebration. So definitely
All right.
looking forward to it.
All right. Well, great. So I want to thank we have a great panel. So Jim Carlson, who's our provost, Susie Calkins, the director of the Nexus for Faculty Success, Sally Madden, our associate vice president for human resources, and Kate Nelson, director of human resources, are all here to talk to us about what we know about all of us from our Forward Together survey work, right? That is, the key to how an institution runs is its people, and we got to figure out if we're happy or not and what we can do to have a better time. So I appreciate all the work that goes into that, in particular, everybody who fills it out, because I know those are not short. So, and that's what we're going to talk about. That's going to be our panel conversation. I'll start with a little bit of news. You'll see Alex Hinkle on here. She is working with Jana as our executive administrative assistant. So she's learning the ropes so that if Jana ever takes a vacation, we have somebody who can help us get through everything. And then I wanted really to start my news today with Thank a Resident. So today is Thank a Resident Day. I want to thank Paul Hung for pointing it out. So for those of you who don't know, like the medical world kind of runs on residency in a lot of ways. Most of the big hospitals in our country have residents, and they are core to how the physician part of the world runs at those places, particularly during COVID. So many people don't know just how much work residents did during COVID. So almost all of their rotations were displaced to working in emergency departments and ICUs. Um, I was in Michigan during that. We actually lost two residents to COVID in Southeast Michigan who were exposed during their time working in an ICU. They work incredibly hard. You can tell because the accreditation requirements say that the most you can ask them to work is an average of 80 hours a week. So but anyway, they do incredible work for patients and for institutions, and I just really appreciate all that they do. And if you see a resident today, be sure to thank them, especially one of ours. I was in DC earlier this week to help celebrate Senator Julie Morrison's AMA Outstanding Government Service Award for her work in helping set up the RFU Child Advocacy Center Clinic in collaboration with the Lake County version of the Child Advocacy Center. I wrote about that some last week from Aaron's desk. You'll read about it again today. So, but she did such a wonderful job talking about her partnership with RFU. and how important it is to find ways to take care of those around us and those in most need and those who, um, like survivors of these childhood survivors of sexual abuse and the work that our people do to help take care of them. It was wonderful. And it was great to see her and RFU talked about at an AMA National Advocacy meeting. And so anyway, it was remarkable. My thanks to Archie Chatterjee actually for helping through nominating her and seeing that as one of the things we could do, and everybody, Jeff Espina and the whole team who do that work and put that clinic together. I did also visit the Hill. While I was there, the American Council on Education happened to have an advocacy day the next day, so I spent the night and went to the Hill, talked to the staffs from our senators and the representatives Davies and Snyder from '07 and 10, those districts, and got to talk about what we do and why we're important in their districts. And it was really fun and interesting. And also, they had some conversations with staffers from the major committees from both the Democratic and Republican Party, and talking about, we got to talk to them about the graduate school, graduate education, professional education issue, and what that means in terms of who gets to finish those kinds of programs or enter or pay for those kinds of programs, the difference between cost of education and tuition, and how much it does take in particular to educate these sort of clinical professions. And then they talked a little bit about accreditation, and there's nothing really specific to say, except of course we know that the majority has its eyes on how accreditation works. That's mostly around undergraduate institutions, not so much around us, although I will say that the LCME, which is the accrediting body for medical schools, and the ABA, the Bar Association, have attracted their attention just because they're, noticeable, I guess. So I expect that, those parts of our accrediting world, not that we have a law school, but are going to feel going to be, put under some sort of pressure. I think we'll be fine, but we will see, particularly for our undergraduate colleagues, that there are a range of changes that they're going to be facing. We continue to work on the budget. So Gavin and his team are running a whole series of meetings where we look at finances around the university, trying to figure out how we get to a break-even budget. In order for us to do anything fun, we kind of have to figure out how we get to a break-even budget. Last year, the budget was about $1 million. It took $1 million out of savings. So we have to close that hole, and that will not be easy. To complicate matters, our healthcare expenses went up about $1 million. So we are self-insured. And so when we spend more, we have to pay more. Interestingly, a large portion of that $1 million is GLP-1 drugs, so the Ozempics of the world. And we expect that to continue. So it's not like it's a one-time blip. So if we can solve that $1 million, we need to solve that extra $1 million in a way that's sustainable. I appreciate everybody who's working on this. None of these things are fun, and they are always challenging. The more we can figure out how to have more revenue, the easier this gets, right? So, but also trying to figure out how we can do our work and have a great career and do so as efficiently as possible is really important to us. In more fun, tonight is Lunar New Year and then Black History Month dinner and showcase. One of our alums and the vice chair of the Board of Trustees, Kim Derry, is going to be speaking tonight at Black History Month. The festivities start at 5 up in the various centennial rooms. And then tomorrow is Dance for Health Equity and Educational Excellence. I expect everybody to show up, show out, smooth as a fresh jar of Skippy. It is already sold out. So, and anyway, it should be fun. So thanks to everybody who's going to that and to our friends at Wintrust who are sponsoring it. So, which is great. That's my news. I'm always happy to answer questions. This is always more fun when we have questions. So, Jim, we talked about having a town hall about the survey as for a long time as a way to tell people what we learned and what we know and get, have people ask questions about what this shows. And so I appreciate you and the team coming together. I know you have slides, so I'll turn the screen over to you.
All right. I'll share and hopefully everybody can see that. So, yep. And thank you, Dr. Sousa, for the opportunity to come and talk a bit about this and share this with the community. I think it's important to do. And thank you to Susie and Sally and Kate for joining us to add their insights and their expertise to this. So, the Forward survey, Forward Together, as we're calling this presentation, is just a summary of the Forward survey, which, as you know, we do each year. Before we get going, I want to acknowledge all the work done out of institutional effectiveness and decision support. So Mahir and Swapna and their work, all of that survey data where we spend a bunch of time filling out the survey, then that gets to be analyzed and crunched and reported and interpreted. And there were others, I'm sure, who were involved in this, but I want to give a special acknowledgement to the hard work that went into it based on all of the data that had to be analyzed with it. So thank you for that work. All right, so the Forward survey, as many of you probably know, it's just something we give every few years, every 3 years. So it's first administered in 2006. And then every 3 years thereafter. And it's really focused on understanding the perceptions and experiences of our faculty and staff, so our workforce, right? And gaining insights into what they perceive as what's going well, what's effective or less effective, and helping to inform us strategically as we move forward and as a community. So it's instructive feedback. It's designed to shape the future. The larger report we'll get into in a little bit. It's hosted on Insights, so you can see all the historical trends back to 2006 in that report. It's this little red icon you see there. I'll direct you to that at the end if you want a deeper dive into that. So just in a nutshell, right, the Forward survey measures several domains. So there are 4 items along that look into trust, respect, and fairness, 6 items around communication, 8 items around rewards and recognition. Teamwork, ownership, and accountability is reflected across 8 items, learning and development, 5 items, resource availability around 6 items, work-life balance, safety, wellness around 7 items, and then diversity and culture 4. And, just to sort of, statistically, those items load well into these categories and help across multiple items and give us a pretty good sense for how the community is feeling about things. So in terms of the last survey, which was administered in 2025, which I'm assuming many of you completed, in terms of the classification, 39% of respondents were faculty and 60% were staff, 339 total respondents, and about 43% of the community responded. 796 received the survey. In terms of employment status, 88% of respondents were full-time, and then we had about 10% of the respondents were part-time. And then in terms of the breakdown by gender identity, you can see there's 60% male, 31% female, and 1% reported as non-binary. So this is just sort of the background and what was completed in this run of the survey. More details again in that book. If you're interested and you want to drill in, you can do that, and we'll make that available and Insight to take a look at. In terms of the other data, when we look at age breakdown, you can see a breakdown across your age brackets here, and then across self-reported race for those that chose to report that. With our greatest distributions, you can see across, kind of a range here, ranging from 20 to 60-year-olds and so on. In terms of years of data, which is interesting, right? In terms of years of service to the institution, there's kind of a bimodal distribution here when you take a look at it, where the bulk of the respondents either had been here for 3 years or less or 10 years or more, right? So there were perspectives on representing folks who've been here for a while, and then folks who were newer to the institution at the time of this. So maybe their first run through actually completing this. So that actually does frame some of the things we'll talk about a bit with the workforce as we go forward, but it's an interesting reflection of who completed the survey in this last run. So just as a quick summary, again, the details can be found in that book. We're going to hit some high points today just to spend a little time and thinking a little bit about what the data says, and then we're going to end with what we are doing as an institution to address some of the things that came up in the survey and create a climate moving forward that addresses a few of those things. So summary of findings, right? Generally speaking, employees seem satisfied here at Rosalind Franklin and view RFU as a good place to work, right? And those are some of the responses across a variety of the items we talked about. They understand the vision and mission of the university, so that seems to be pretty clearly communicated to the community. And their role in moving the university forward, they understand their role with that and seek growth opportunities. So the good thing is people who are here are invested and want opportunities to continue to be invested, right? Employees recognize that the leaders of RFU value us, right? And the university's most important resource, and that university values diversity and feel a fit for themselves at RFU. And employees are positive about teamwork, mutual respect and fairness. But there are opportunities to improve communications, particularly across working groups and across our different divisions at the university. So overall, that's kind of in a nutshell, I think, some of the positives and things to think about, but we'll get into a little bit more detail with some of the specific items. So some areas of strength, I think that would be good to highlight as we take a look at. So in terms of that teamwork, ownership, and accountability domain, right, that is asked about, you can see in terms of 96, 97% answered positively about each of these comments. So striving to exceed expectations of their positions, understanding how the position helps RFU move forward, a willingness to do whatever they can to move RFU forward, and loyalty to the department or work group. So that was 96 to 97% in the affirmative. Work-life balance, safety, and wellness also had some notable areas of strength. So physical environment feels safe at about 98%. I'd like to be working at RFU 1 year from today, which is always great to hear. So 94% answered affirmative to that. And then I have the resources to do my work. So about 83% in that. So overall, that category seemed to be pretty well responded to by and favored by those who responded. Resource availability, leaders of RFU are committed to making this a good place to work. About 89% responded affirmative to that. A couple other areas of strength, I think it's worth noting too, as we pull out a few of the items. So diversity and culture, again, was in the 93, 94% positively viewed by the community. I feel the university respects my culture. Diversity is valued at RFU, and I feel like I fit as part of the community. So that fitness with regards to culture and mission here seems to be well received. Trust, respect, and fairness. I believe the leaders of RFU are honest and trustworthy at 89%, and I respect the person who gives me my annual review, so direct relationships at about 95%. And then learning and development, my performance is evaluated fairly at about 91%. So across those domains, there seems to be some pretty positive news to report in terms of at least how our community feels about each of these areas. One more global item I think that's really important to highlight, if you like, as a take-home message, at least I think about when I look at this data, 93% of respondents strongly agreed or agree that RFU is a good place to work. So just on that reaction to that statement, is RFU a good place to work? 93% of our community could respond affirmatively to that. Our survey is unique, meaning we built it, right? And it mirrors some things in the external environment that which I have Sally talk about and Kay talk about here in a minute from Coupa, which is general higher education HR responses. So in terms of that similar sort of statement, nationally, other institutions in higher ed, about 66% reported that they would strongly agree that they are satisfied with their job, right? So that was kind of as close of a comparison as we found within that data. So I think that bodes well. And looking at compared to at least some form of a similar national benchmark, our community seems generally happy with RFU as a whole. So I don't know if you want to talk, or Kate, about Coupa a bit and help folks understand a little bit about what that is and what the national data says.
Sure. So Coupa is a national organization. Coupa stands for College and University Professional Association, and it is specific to HR professionals. They have 1,700 member organizations and over 23,000 HR professionals belong to this organization. So we do utilize Coupa a lot. We are actively involved in Coupa. We use a lot of their data. We get a lot of their articles and information from them. So it really is a highly valued relationship with our HR team. So just looking at, we're going to share some of the Coupa insights from their most recent retention survey. So this was from 2025 as well. So it correlates nicely with the forward survey. And basically you can see that the strongest predictor of retention is job satisfaction. I don't think that's a surprise to everybody, or anybody, I should say. And I think the trend is showing that other factors like a sense of belonging, feeling valued by others, feeling engaged, and feeling like your work has purpose really is coming up at the top of these factors. And in this particular survey, it actually showed that the perception of pay is much lower than it was in the 2023 survey. So it dropped down to 20, where in 2023 it ranked 7. So I think a lot of those other factors that are being shown on here, like I said, are kind of moving up into what is the correlation. And I think that's important to note. Jim, next slide. Kate.
So this is Coupa's retention model based on their findings in their employee retention survey. And it's an indicator of where the direction of resources would provide the greatest opportunity to increase retention, job satisfaction and well-being being a big one. Interestingly, increased demands and responsibilities is a positive predictor of retention, but only when the employee views it as a sign of trust, reliance, career growth, or recognition. But once it becomes overwork or burnout, then it becomes a negative predictor. So there's a delicate balance there. Pay also remains a factor, but there are other factors that are more important. And the big takeaway here, I think, is employees are far less likely to look for other employment when they feel valued, connected, and feel supported in their roles. Next slide.
Okay, so this shows how RFU compares to the Coupa HR survey. And if you look at this, it's measuring the likelihood of looking for other employment within the next 12 months, so within the next year. And according to the Coupa survey, 25% are somewhat likely to very likely looking for other employment. And that's similar to what our results are, kind of, because what our survey results showed is that 76% felt that it would take a lot for them to leave. But it also shows that 94% of RFU employees said they would like to be working at RFU 1 year from today. So that is a very strong survey result that we're proud of. Next. So, however, RFU compares again to employees leave for more pay and more opportunities. Again, I don't think this is surprising. Pay is obviously always a factor. I don't know of anyone who could say, oh yeah, I'm happy with my pay and I would not accept a raise at any point in my career. So pay is always a factor, but the RFU results are that since the last survey, there was a slight uptick in the satisfaction with compensation, but a decline in the satisfaction with growth opportunities. So we know that that's an area that we need to work on. Next. Back to you,
Yep.
Jim.
So I think that brings us just a comparison with, we went through sort of the areas of strength we saw and then what the national data is in summary saying. In the current forward survey, then that probably brings us to a few areas to watch if you look at the trend between 2022, 2025, right? Areas around developing our workforce, growth opportunities, compensation and benefits, and then communication. So you can see here just breaking down with a bit of an arrow either down or up or green or red or yellow, right? So growth opportunities in terms of viewing that favorably from our population here, our view is at a 72% in 2022 and 2025 was a 61%. So there's a drop there, and it was, over a 10% drop. And so something for us to think about is, you know, I think as an organization, with a very specific mission and different kinds of departments, and sometimes smaller departments, where are there opportunities for folks to grow, right? And we need to be very mindful and hear what I think this survey is saying and keep looking at those things. And we'll talk about some opportunities to help with that here in a few minutes. Equity or equitable and distribution of resources improved, but still something, that rated about a 62% positive response rate from our community. So while improving, something to continue to be mindful of. So across programs and areas, do we have some equitable distribution? Fair compensation, again, improved, but at about a 64% rating in our most recent 2025 survey. Communication between work groups is in the 60s. It dropped slightly, but trying to make sure that folks feel connected and connected across their different either departments or colleges or different divisions that they work in. And then the kind of statement of it would take a lot for me to leave our few. Again, the prior slides and the data did demonstrate that people want to be here and they're satisfied with it, but there was a slight drop in that, and we need to make sure that we're being mindful of that. Some things in the Coupa data, which we can get into later on. We all remember that bimodal distribution we talked about, where a lot of the folks who completed the survey were either new in the past few years to the institution, and maybe we are seeing a more transient workforce post-pandemic. I don't know. There may be a lot of explanations of that, but it is something we need to think about in making sure people are happy here and want to stay, continuing to do their work here. So I'm going to turn this back over to Kate and Sally to talk a little bit about. We just talked about the data, but then here are some things in terms of growth, in terms of communication, and in terms of opportunities we'd like to put out, or we are working on, and we have been putting out for different opportunities for staff and faculty growth. I don't know, Aaron, is this a good time are there any questions in the chat before we move forward with this?
Sure, we can do that. And the last question is actually, is it possible to zoom in on the presentation a little bit?
Sure.
I don't know whether or not, I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, so there are some. Anonymous asks, says, in spite of the costs having gone up, the quality of insurance has gone down, specifically in the area of physical therapy over the last year or two. I don't actually know what the number of visits covered and for what, but there are two things that tend to go into that. One is whatever the insurance company decides for various problems. So you have your knee replaced, the number of PT visits, they might change for any number of reasons. And two, yeah, there's no doubt that insurance has gotten worse over the last however many years, both for the provider side and the patient side. David Mueller asks, I don't understand what you mean by self-insured. I thought we bought insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And Gavin can correct me here. He can put his hand up if I screw this up too badly. But fundamentally, Blue Cross Blue Shield does run the insurance. They manage it, but we pay the costs up to a certain point. We do have our own insurance. If something were to happen and costs were go up even more, we pay an additional insurance policy, but we essentially have a great big family deductible. We pay the costs, and that's a way of keeping the price for the down, because basically we're betting that our folks are going to be healthy. So that's what self-insurance sort of means, but we don't manage that insurance. Blue Cross Blue Shield manages the insurance for us. Sally, you're nodding your head. Did I do okay?
Yes. So our two self-insured plans are the PPO plan and the HSA plan. And then the HMO plans are all fully insured. So as Aaron said, for the PPO plans, we actually pay the claims up to a certain amount. And then the insurance company takes over at that point. So we are paying for the claims when people use the plans. And that's just the way those particular plans were structured.
A number of from Anonymous, a number of companies, AbbVie, and even countries do not allow emails to employees outside the workday. Have we considered this as a policy for RFU? I can imagine that there are jobs for which that would not work. We have a whole bunch of people we have people who live on campus essentially, and we have students and we do healthcare. There are a whole group of folks where outside of the workday is not outside of the workday. But I don't know actually, I have to say, RFU has a very, I thought, nice email culture, at least as I've witnessed it. So coming from somewhere else, but I'll let other people talk about what kind of conversations there have or have not been.
Yeah, I guess I would say, we certainly don't encourage after hours communication unless it's absolutely necessary. That is part of our culture here. So if people are doing that, we obviously would like them to minimize that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I know that I say we might work sometimes, off hours and things, but I know I'll send an email to time it to go on Monday morning or Tuesday morning or something, not like during that off time.
Yeah, I have to admit it's taken me a little getting used to. But it is certainly a much superior way of doing things than what I was used to before. Kristen Snyder asks, have you examined the survey results split by faculty and staff? Are there consistencies or are they consistent across these domains? Or I suppose the corollary, are they different across those domains?
Yeah, there are a few differences. I'd have to drill back into look. These are the general trends we saw across most. I think what's common across most is what we're about to talk about, and that's the growth opportunities. And it's definitely staff are interested. I think faculty are as well, but there did seem to be some strong interest across staff for growth opportunities and advancement in their roles. So I think that might be a nice time to have you start talking about where we're going with growth opportunities for staff, if that works.
Sounds
Sure.
good. People should feel free to put questions in as we go.
Yep.
So from a growth opportunities for staff perspective, I want to bring us back to the current strategic plan. There are two goals that relate to this particular topic in the strategic plan. So there are two working groups that are part of the strategic plan working groups that are working on these goals. So 2.1 basically states continue developing and retaining faculty and staff who possess skills that help our students become resilient students and professionals. And then 2.3 is provide employees opportunities for promotion and development. So as you can see, there's a big crossover between these two strategic planning goals. So we have been working on these, and these are some of the things that either have been launched recently or are in the planning stages. So the first one I'm going to highlight is the Managers Boot Camp. We recognize the need to give people managers training. We really have not done anything in that realm before. And thanks to Majida Purnell on my team, she was able to develop a course. It's a 7-module course that currently launched. It launched in November, and it's 7 modules that focuses on the really basic management skills, like supervising people. What are the laws and compliance that we need to be aware of as we're managing people? How do we hire people? Those kind of topics are what's included in this boot camp. And like I said, we're in the pilot program right now, and our goal is to get all people managers trained within the next 2 to 3 years. In addition to that, we've got this durable skills training and development. Many of you participated in a survey that was recently sent out. I think it was just last month. And the focus on durable skills is because what we're learning and seeing in business and other communications is that with the advent of AI and other technology, there is a great need for these people skills, the soft skills, what used to be called as soft skills. So things like empathy, creative thinking, working collaboratively, effective communication, etc. And so we did ask you, what were your top issues that you wanted to receive training in? And so those are highlighted here in those 4 bullet points. So those are going to be the focus of the durable skills training. We'll be doing that in a variety of modes, including mentoring circles, which will give people the opportunity to lead and also share their knowledge and develop different kinds of skill sets related to mentoring and leadership. So we're super excited about that, but that's in the very early planning stages. And that also will be across university collaboration. We'll be working with the Faculty Senate, we'll be working with Staff Council, we'll be working with Susie and the Nexus to kind of develop this program and make sure that it's really inclusive. Next, Jim. Oops. There we go. I'm going to ask Kate to talk on this other program that's going to be launched shortly.
Okay, so the buddy program, this is also currently being developed, and you can kind of think of this as like an onboarding mentorship program. So current staff members would sign up to serve as an onboarding mentor to somebody who is new, just coming into the university. So the goal is for staff not to be a trainer or a manager, but just to serve as an additional resource and help new employees get acclimated to RFU culture, help facilitate intros, help them build connections across the university, bring them along to different events that are happening here on campus. And for the employees that are participating in this, it's going to help them develop their own mentoring skills, help them develop their communication skills, and also help grow their own network within RFU. Some of the feedback that we've heard is that sometimes things still feel a little siloed here at the university. And so if you are paired up with somebody from a different department or division, you're going to naturally grow your own network, and it's going to help employees also be exposed to other areas of the university that maybe they're not as familiar with. Next slide.
So other training programs for staff that we're looking at, you may recall last May, we did a manager's guide to recognizing and addressing mental health challenges in the workplace. That was so well received that we plan on repeating it again this May. In addition, we've had requests to just have it for employees as well. So not only from the manager's perspective, how they can help, but also how can employees help recognize those signs and help each other out and support each other. I do want to highlight too that we do have 2 programs under the HR umbrella. We do have a staff tuition reimbursement program and a small external training budget for employees who wish to take advantage of some development opportunities. For tuition, it's allowed up to $3,500 per year. And for the external training, it would cover things like a one-day conference or a webinar up to $450. Majida actually handles those programs for us. So if you're interested in getting more information, you can reach out to her or look on our Insight pages. We also obviously have lunch and learns through the Staff Council and ongoing programs through the Nexus for Faculty Success. And then I'll turn it over to Susie to talk a little bit about what kind of programs are being offered for faculty.
Great. So thanks so much. I've talked recently about what the Nexus offers, and just to kind of say that the Nexus for Faculty Success is designed to support faculty across the life cycle. So we have our early career faculty, our mid-career faculty, more people who've been here, more experienced faculty, and sometimes people are coming in from different positions and have different needs, and also supporting them, leading as educators, leading as scholars, and leading in place, leading for themselves. And so this new opportunity that we're developing is a Leading as Chairs program. So this would be a year-long program that we're developing. This would be for next year, that we've been developing in collaboration with the deans, other senior administrators, and of course, we'll be connecting with current chairs to identify what kind of skills and areas of need that our department chairs really need. And this will help them as individuals, but also help foster a culture and an environment that will support all our faculty and then actually ultimately our students. And so this is meant to be collaborative. So the chairs will be brought together from across all 6 schools. They will be nominated by their deans, so it's an invited program. They will be thinking about, they'll be reflecting their learning, their growth. Everybody comes in with different skills. Some people come in having had some training as a chair. Some people come in and say, what in the world am I doing? And they learn on the job, and that can work really well. And sometimes they say, I think I still need to develop in this area. This is designed to help provide them with this support. So what does that mean to be a chair? What does it mean to be a leader? But what does it mean to be a chair? How do we think about the kind of culture we're creating in our departments, thinking through strategic planning and resource allocation, but also navigating change. We have all kinds of change, individual change. I've now become a chair. I am transitioning, or change of the larger world around us. And then within our school, there's a lot of different types of change that needs to be navigated. How we think about communication with peers, communication with students, communication with administration and other stakeholders. And then, how are we supporting our faculty in terms of mentoring, guiding, providing kind of the critical feedback that allow our faculty to succeed and thrive in an environment. And also, it is about supporting students as well. So this is what the Leading as Chairs program, to be rolled out soon. We will be letting you know about it more. And then we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. And so just in general, the other things that we do for all faculty, and of course, staff, as I mentioned in the last session, staff, students are very welcome to attend, many of our events and activities. And so we have regular programming related to learning and teaching, like creating those kinds of inclusive environments that our students need to thrive and to help our faculty feel that they can succeed as well. We've developed sessions around mentoring, different opportunities around leadership. We've partnered with HR actually in the past recently about some things related to how do we work with faculty working with staff around academic writing. And we also have, I didn't put it in here, but we're developing a new series that's for mid-career faculty as well. And I've been getting different requests from faculty around campus for something like that. So that's another set of conversations we're going to be having. We always provide support at the individual level, so consultations, observations. We can provide student focus groups to allow you to get that critical feedback you need to create the kind of environments that help all of us thrive. And we provide feedback. It can be on course materials, but also on grant proposals, academic writings, manuscripts. We do have similar to what their staff awards too, that help with that vital recognition and feeling like I value and I mean something at the university. And so Dr. Judy Patashkin runs our faculty recognition program where people can let everybody know how great you just let a faculty member know how just great they're doing. And we have our Colson Award for Innovation in Teaching and Learning to support innovation in teaching and provide extra resources for faculty who might need a little bit more support in their classes or other contexts, learning in contexts. And then, of course, and this is in collaboration with Faculty Affairs and Senate, we have our annual faculty awards where peers recognize one another for their work. Then we do have, at the community building, we have R&R community, we have our coffee connections, and these are different opportunities to help people feel heard and valued and connected and supported. And of course, we partner with other units around the university. And I always want to say, I know that every school has their faculty development initiatives that are also designed to support their faculty. And so we can work with them. Some of them don't need our help and they're doing great. And some others, are like, hey, can you partner with us to help us build this out? And that's something that we do as well. So trying to create that thriving community to support our faculty. Okay.
Yeah, so those are a few of the things I know that across our, we're looking at putting in place for development and help folks pursue that. If you recall, the other area that we wanted, that the survey noted, was communication across work groups and how do we sort of improve that. And then I think, we were kind of listening out and thinking about this presentation, the number of ways that we are getting information out. And I mean, one, the town hall and the weekly from Erin's desk provides a lot of information, I think, that the community can read through on a weekly basis, right? and learn about what's going on and from one another. There's also, just as a reminder, we have our financial planning town hall, our financial planning town hall that Gavin presents. There's a State of the Medical School address. There's college-specific meetings, the State of the ICC, which recently was out, which is always fantastic. Um, then other communications, that go out. So those are the formal mechanisms, but yeah, probably something to keep thinking about in the strategic plan. How do we continue to have increased methods and ways that our different departments and colleges can communicate and keep each other informed as to what's going on and collaborate. So the more, in interprofessional university, the more we do that, probably the better, right? But that's something certainly I think we have opportunities, but can we keep looking for more, right? And then I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Sally, about other changes or challenges and opportunities that you wanted to mention.
So this is data from Coupa again, and they had a section in their survey about what they view the challenges and opportunities ahead based on the survey results that they received. And these are some of the highlights from that survey. So employees under 45, men, employees of color, and non-supervisors are more likely to seek other opportunities. Job satisfaction for these areas of employees was the lowest, and that's why they are being highlighted here. Pay remains the leading reason employees say they are seeking other employment. We're all pretty aware of that, I think, as well. But other reasons are also driving this, like we stated earlier: workload, job expectations, flexibility, including the opportunity to work hybrid, which I think we're ahead of the curve on compared to other higher ed institutions. And then recognition and connection. Institutional climate remains a challenge, particularly for employees of color. I think a lot of that is based on the current governmental administration kind of challenges that we're seeing. And then finally, job satisfaction and well-being is the strongest predictor of retention. And we know, you've heard it before, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. So if we can do a better job of managing our staff, making them feel appreciated, making sure that they do get some growth opportunities, and just working to build that strong relationship with our teams, that will really help with the retention efforts. So that, I'll hand it back to you, Jim.
All right, and I'll just wrap up, and then I'm sure there are a few more questions. I'll stop sharing here, but let me go back to that. If you want to view the full results in context and answer some of those questions, so under the Human Resources Insight page, you'll see the forward survey results, right? And if you want to access that sooner rather than later, you can snap this QR code and it will take you there now. But it's a way that if you want to take a look at, it's a 25 or 26 page document that goes through all the historical trends, each of the questions, and helps inform a little more than what we got into in this presentation. But I'll stop sharing so we can see each other. And I think that concludes the formal part of any of the PowerPoint or any presentation, if there are any questions.
Well, so we do have some questions, but Sally, I love that people don't leave a job, they leave a manager.
So true.
Isn't it?
And the data supports that.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. Okay, so let's see here. Anonymous says, what percentage of respondents is necessary to have confidence that the results do not have a selection bias? I'm just going to say straight up, as somebody who spent a lot of time with surveys, there's going to be a selection bias. But how many people, what percentage of people, or how many respondents did we have?
I think it was a 43% response rate. So there are 390 some response out of 790 people that got the survey.
So
more
people is always better. So all of these, and I think that, one of the things to recognize, this is not a phase 3, hypertension trial, right? We're doing our best to understand ourselves. And so if we find out that, people are looking for ways to advance and have more opportunities, that's almost certainly true, right? The survey is not lying to us about that. We're all willing to believe that. And then we do some work to try to make that happen. So I think, yeah, I'm sure there's a selection bias somewhere in there. I don't know what it is exactly, but some group of people are less likely to fill the thing out. So I don't know. Okay, so then anonymous. I happened across, and there are actually a couple of related raise questions. I happened across a article, and it's linked down below to Yahoo, that referenced the term peanut butter, quote unquote, raises and proceeds to discuss the use of flat raises applied consistently across an organization. It doesn't pay 3% standardized raises in a favorable light and references these types of policies as being used in a time of economic uncertainty. However, the description of peanut butter raises seems to be generally aligned with what has essentially occurred at RFU for many years. Are there comparisons of raise policies at similar institutions with those at that RFU has regularly done? And then a related one, I appreciate peanut butter raises, especially when they're framed as cost of living raises. Would merit raises be nice? Yes, but I'm more interested in making sure I'm not effectively earning less than I did the year before. So I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not actually going to venture too far. I thought that managers could choose not to do the 3% raise. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes, but I think the point that's being raised is 3% is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And to really differentiate our stellar performers, it's probably a challenge to do that in this market with our budget constraints. I can add to that, though, as part of the survey results, which I didn't mention earlier, according to Coupa, just 43% of employees received a pay increase in the past year. So,
Yeah.
that
The average 3%, right, is also something that tends to, if you want everybody to have average or if you want to have an average 3%, that means that your high performers get more and your average performers actually get less.
right.
Right? Unless you have a whole bunch of really low performers. So by and large, most places, if you say the average raise is 3%, an average performance cannot have a 3% raise if you're gonna have some range. The other thing is this gets to the whole question of percent raises versus flat versus cash percentage of the pot versus percentage of salary, right? So I've been in a department where we did percentage of the pot, not percentage of salary. So if the pot was $10,000, then you got a percentage of the pot. And maybe your raise was $500 or maybe your raise was $1,000. That meant that your percent of your salary was pretty low. However, the thing that it did was it did not punish people who make less money, right? So a percentage of salary tends to be bad for people who are making less, because same percentage of a high salary is a lot more money than a percentage of a low salary. So it tends to equalize the way salary works. It tends to benefit, frankly, people who have been underpaid, women, people of color, young people, things like that. It comes with its own political complications, right? Not the least of which is we almost never talk about it that way. The language is completely different. There are lots of models. It is not uncommon for people to say the average raise is X%, and then you can go up and above and below, and it's not common for managers to avoid that because and creates a lot of difficult conversations. No, all true. Paul, anything that anybody else wants to add to that? Paul Fina says, when will the buddy program roll out, and would it be possible to enroll newer, i.e. less, or let's see here, more than 6 months, but less than a year employees? That's pretty specific.
So I'm hoping we can get it rolled out within the next few months. We have a basic framework in place, and this particular work group, we actually meet next week to review it and talk about it and make any suggestions. The way it's currently planned is for new people just coming into the university. So it's to help them get acclimated over their first 3 to 6 months. You know, the relationship could continue beyond that, you know, if the individuals involved choose to continue meeting on a regular basis. But this particular program is really to help new employees find their way in the university and, you know, and have a connection outside their own department. Sometimes it's helpful, you know, when you're struggling, when you're trying to figure out your job and you're trying to figure out where things are, having somebody else, you know, that you can talk to about things, you know, it's helpful to have that resource there as well.
Anonymous asks, what's the rationale behind tuition forgiveness not being made available to faculty members as well as staff?
I'm not aware that it is not available to faculty.
Okay.
I mean, we get the forms all the time and we complete them and send them in. So I'm not the person that does complete them, but I know it is done by my team. If, you know, if this person has specific questions, they can certainly reach out to me. We can
There
get
is
to
a
the
question
bottom of it.
there's a question of tuition reimbursement and workshop funds grew out of the 2011-12 strategic plan. So we have a historian. Expand professional development opportunities. There's a quote. There was another subgroup assigned to represent faculty that made different recommendations that were specific to the faculty needs. I guess the real question is, what is this case now? So, and a question, departments are given a 3% budget for raises, so how can we give more than 3%? If two people are paid the same amount and you give one person a 2.5% raise, you can give somebody else a 3.5% raise. Really comes down to the amount of money in the budget for raises and how you apportion that, but that's how that would work, which is why it often doesn't happen.
True.
Charlotte Beyer asks, for context, at some institutions, people do not get annual raises every year, but only when they move up a level, but the percentage would even out even if they do not get one every year. And there are situations where there are merit pools where you only get a raise if you get into the merit pool, as sort of a separate, often that's done for especially people who are a flight risk, or where you're worried about those sorts of things. I don't know. The anonymous asks if the recommendation has been revisited since. Not quite sure what they're asking. For positions that have a salary range, there is not clear definition for how we meet the next step up in our range. That is only possible through annual raises. Is there a way for us to grow within our pay scale? If the latter, how do we know what that way is? When asked, the response from HR was that our supervisor needs to request a raise for us. However, if they don't have a metric, then, or how to ask, or how, we don't understand how this happens. There's a summative point at the end.
Kate, I'm going to ask you to take that one.
So there is opportunity for people to grow within the pay range that they're currently in. Typically what we do is we ask managers to first review the job description because we want to make sure it's accurate. You know, sometimes people have taken on additional duties, you know, for quite a bit of time. Their job description's never updated, and sometimes that ends up being justification to either move them up a grade or to look at either a market or an equity adjustment. So that's why we say start with your manager, look at your job description, and then, you know, we can take a look and see where you sit in the grade, you know, what role are you performing now? How does that compare with other people across the institution? And how does that compare with outside market conditions as well? So yeah, so it is, aside from merit, there are other opportunities for people to grow within their current range.
From Anonymous, we always learn what the average raise will be for faculty and staff, but we never learn what it will be for senior administration. Does it differ? And I don't know what the history of that is.
It does not differ.
All right. I am going to declare us at the top of the hour because we have gone through the questions, and I appreciate all you guys, all the work that goes into the survey, all the work that goes into this, and your willingness to answer questions and take care of our folk. I want to let people know there will not be a town hall next week. I will be meeting with alumni, so no town hall next week. But But I appreciate all of you, Sally, Kate, Susie, Jim. Thanks for being with us today. And thanks to all of you for joining us on the Town Hall. Thank you for all you do to support our faculty, our staff, and our students. It is the work of people like you that make the university such a special place to be. It is Friday. I hope you get to have a weekend. Take care, everybody.